Good afternoon, everyone. How is everyone doing today on Wonderful Wednesday? It has been a while for Conversations for Humanity to be live and in living color on a Wednesday because, sometimes life happens for us rather than through us. And the people that we had in store, of course, had other things coming on. We wanted to take it into an audio format, but still the engagement was there, and that's why we're back at them yet again because we missed you all here on LinkedIn and also on YouTube, and we want to bring you a great and special guest today, all the way from Ireland. So our special guest will be Daniel Baillieul. He will be joining us shortly, of course, all the way from Ireland. And I remember, if I remember correctly, he actually is not that far from Belfast. So I would love to see Belfast and everything like that. And I know Ireland is a beautiful country and everything, but he'll be joining us shortly in and of itself. So again, we are just so humbled and honored to have each and every single one of you here today. And if you want to join into the conversation when Daniel is here, when you hear his story today, I'm going to share with you guys the link. We have an availability, if you can believe it or not, to have 10 people on the call today. And that includes Daniel too as well. So here is the link if you want to join into the conversation today. And I'm going to put that up for you now. Here is the link. It is right there at StreamYard.com, and that is the link. Excuse me. So you can join into the conversation today. And again, this show is meant for each and every single one of you guys today and everything like that. And Gregory, glad that you're here. Please click the link to join into the conversation today, sir. We would love to have you here today. And yes, me and you definitely need to talk tomorrow in and of itself. So we definitely need to set that call up. And today, I kid you not, people are really bringing humanity together. What we are doing and what we're all about here. Because our call today that we had today, it's all about the leadership. Who's on the leadership team and the people who's leading the pillars. We had two fantastic people that was actually on today to actually lend a different perspective of where we can take this and how we can do this and how we can build this up. And amazingly, that's what bringing humanity together is all about, having that one opportunity at a time, that one conversation at a time, and even that one moment at a time that can literally change the direction of where you want to go, not only in life, but what you do and everything like that. Gregory is in the comment section of today's call. So look in the comment section. Let me go back and reply back to you. Here it is. There it goes. Bing, bang, boom. You should have it now. But yeah, Daniel will be joining us here shortly, and everything. And also, when you get invited to these LinkedIn live streams, what I do is I put it in the description of the call. So when you guys get invited to it, always look to the description on it, and then you'll get into it. And there's the man himself, our of the day, Daniel, all the way from Ireland. And I believe, am I correct? You even just got done with yoga, did you not?
Oh yeah, I still have the room is still half up here. Well, the ladies just put away their mats for me while I came in to sign on the other room. I'm just done this very second. Yeah.
How did it go?
Oh, great. Yeah, great. Lovely class. Now, a bit quicker than I usually do it, even though the class is scheduled for an hour. I normally run 15 or 20 minutes over if people aren't in a rush, because I like to give that bit of extra time, and I enjoy kind of like really taking my time to build them up and then putting them through the paces and then giving them a nice long relaxation at the end. So um, yeah, they just got ran through a little bit quicker than usual today, but that means I worked them harder and then they relaxed deeper for the few minutes they were relaxing. So it's all good.
I bet you they're
All
going
good.
like, "Oh, it's over. It's done."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. One of the ladies said, "I thought you were going easy on us today."
And how many days a week do you actually do those classes?
So I do one Tuesday morning, Wednesday evening, Friday morning, and Sunday evening.
So 4 days a
So,
week.
yeah, yeah. So the
That's not
Tuesday
bad.
class, so the Wednesday night and the Friday morning are kind of very beginner style. Sunday night is like a warriors yoga class. It's like, you know what I mean? Don't come here if you're injured kind of thing. This is to push yourself. And then Tuesday morning is somewhere in the middle. Is somewhere in the middle. Yeah,
Yeah. Whatever you
yeah.
do, don't come injured. If you got a bad leg or a bad hip, don't come.
Yeah,
That's not a good
yeah.
thing for you.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Come Wednesday or come Friday, we'll look after you. Come Sunday, you're going to get broke. You know? Yeah, yeah.
But Daniel, I know I'm sure our audience would love to know how me and you got connected. And then, of course, we'll go at the top of the hour to hear your story. But again, first and foremost, thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing of your story and everything like that. But tell people how me and you got connected and how did that turn up?
I took part, I do believe it was in LinkedIn audio with a lady called Samantha London or Gina London and Samantha something else, but it was two ladies that were talking about the language of leadership, I think was the
Yeah.
topic at the time, yeah. And I sent a connect message to everyone that was in the group, Chris being one of them. He said it'd be great to connect with humanity, bringing humanity together. And I said, sure, what's that? What's going on? And just followed my curiosity to a conversation later that evening. Chris invited me to, and sure, here I am now on the on the main stage. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. Because, like I told Daniel, I truly believe, ladies and gentlemen, not only do our stories matter, but those stories might be the one story that really gets us on fire and really calls us to act and maybe inspires us to really say, maybe, you know what? I can go past the yoga class today. I want to say, hey, Daniel, I want to lead a class now, you know? And then when we do that, it creates so much opportunity and so much insightfulness. It's the greatest gift in and of itself.
Yeah, yeah, very good.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Oh yeah, so where to begin then? Is there like so where do people usually start? Is there like questionable prompts or do we just dive in or what's the
What? No, no. Like I said, tell people where you're from and all that kind of stuff. And I'm sure they would love to know because I've already kind of given them a hint that you're from Ireland and all that great stuff. But kind of tell them, okay, of course, who Daniel
Okay.
is and where's he from.
Okay, yeah. So my name is Daniel Baillieul. I'm from Wexford here in the south of Ireland. It's called the sunny southeast. We get some of the best sun and the best weather of the country. Um, what is about me? So I've just recently started my new business called Back to Gra. Gra is the Irish word for love. In my business, I teach yoga, I do massage, different types of energy healing modalities like integrated energy therapy. Rahani is kind of similar to Reiki, uh, Andean shamanism, things like that. And then the newest thing to my skill set is life coaching and wellness mentoring. I am over the past, I don't know, decade at least, I've been kind of doing my own, like going to yoga or Pilates or acupuncture or whatever. I kind of bumped myself into, or even dance classes at times. And it was a couple of years ago after doing some men's empowerment work that I got really passionate about the coaching and mentoring side of things and kind of I don't know, I suppose I was floating around with all these qualifications like a bit of a headless chicken. And then when I done the men's empowerment work and really done some deep shadow work and cleansing and purging and all that, colorful stuff that I finally found myself in the position to, as Chris said, step up and take the reins and start doing instead of participating. Hmm.
Wow, wow. And I'm sure our audience would love to know, how long have you been living in Ireland for?
Well, I've been in Ireland my whole life, so I've been born here, but my father was from Belgium, so I'm half Belgian, but I've been in Ireland since I was young, since I was a baby, since I was born. Yeah, I've only when I went on a few holidays to Belgium when I was younger, when my dad was alive, and I've gone on a few holidays to Amsterdam back before I got a bit more responsible in myself, and yeah, I think I've just been to maybe France a few times as on a teenager or something like that. No, nothing, not
So,
too much traveled apart from that. I went to Peru once actually. All right, just a few years ago. That was a very kind of healing, healing holiday. A healing holiday. Yeah.
but I'm sure there's a story behind the story, so to speak, because I'm sure to find out, how did your mom and dad get to meet, first and foremost. I believe that's a story in and of itself, because a guy from Belgium, and where's your mom from?
So my mum is from Wexford here, where I'm from. Yeah. So my father came over as a young man. I think a little bit older than me. I'm 34 now. So he was around 35 or 36, I think, when he moved over to Ireland with a group of other Belgian guys, and they started up the fish factory down here in Duncannon. He was working for one of them. My mother started working at the fish factory as well. She was quite young now, so my daddy's a bit of a rascal, bless him. Yeah, and
Oh,
um, yeah, so they should end up going for sure, end up going out one night, and should end the rest of his history then. So he stayed over here, kept on the fish factory, um, worked there for um worked, like ran the fish factory there until he passed away back in 2008, I think it was,
uh-huh.
2008. Or else it could have been the end of 2007. I think I finished school. So 2007, 2008 is about 16 years ago now. So, um, and then, I'd say kind of that's that then. That's how they got together. So that's as much now I
Oh
do.
my word, Daniel. Then the question then becomes, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Why would five Belgian guys go to Ireland and say, you know what? It's time for us to start a fish market. Let's do that. Let's make a fishing business. What made them want to do that?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't know. So it's like group of young men, either like sure you can only speculate. I can only imagine maybe either life wasn't going the way they wanted to over there, or else maybe there was a potential opportunity over here that people
Yeah,
seen and came and jumped on it. You know what I mean? So that's there was a bit of a I don't know, a bit of a generational gap in knowledge between me and my father, because he was so much older and then I was so young, and
yeah,
I was probably only kind of coming out of that kind of teenage bullshit by the time he
yeah.
passed on. You know what I mean? So I didn't really get to, I never really learned. I have a rough idea how to fish, and I could probably get away with it. But like even, casting a rod, and like even I was a vegetarian for most of my life until my mid to late 20s. So like even he would have been able to butcher his own meat and stuff like that. So I didn't learn any of these skills that he would have had, or how to fillet fish or anything like that. You know what I mean? Didn't learn any of those, or even running the business. Didn't get passed on those skills. So
I
I'm
I
here.
gotta ask you this though. When your father did set up the business and everything like that, and I know he's passed on and everything like that. Did you ever, when you got to a point that you really knew what your father did and everything like that, did you ever say, I got to go check this place out, and so how he set up shop, where it looked like, and all that? Did you ever do that?
No, well, I used to work there. Like, I used to do some physical work, but I never really taught much beyond it. Now, I
Okay.
would have, I probably would have, like, pulled it together pretty quickly, because it was um, just a case of handing out, like just a case of like having a lorry to be there when the fish should come in, talking to the people of where it's going, and just checking on the prices of markets to see where's the best place to send it at a time. So like I see now, and I would have had like flashes into it, but I never really suppose I just never really thought about it too much. It just if I was told to go down and pull some fish boxes or lift some stuff, I just went down and do what I was told, and sure that was that, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure fishing is a totally different thing in Ireland than it is here in the United States. Because see, the United States has so many different dynamics. We have crab fishing, we have the deep sea fishing, we have, of course, when you get like up into Alaska in the northern part of the country and everything like that, you also have those other things that's out there. You have um, the tuna and all
Tuna.
that kind of stuff. And I'm sure in Ireland it's a totally different game because Ireland, in and of itself, of course, is part of England, but you're literally on an island surrounded by water. And I got to ask you, what kind of life is out there in Ireland that it's not just about the fishing dynamic. In fact, there's a guy that actually lives in Scotland, and he does a thing called the Hoof GP, and he does hooves for a living. So he does sheep, he does cows, all that kind of stuff. What's life like literally in Ireland? What does that look like and mean to you since you've been there basically all your life?
Yeah, well, I suppose it just depends on what part you're from. Like you have, obviously out along the coast, you'd have a lot of fishing families where people would go out and fish. But there is a lot of farmers, like a lot of dairy farmers, a lot of meat farmers, a lot of vegetable crops. Now, in terms of like kind of since Ireland joined the EU, there was like kind of limitations put on fishing grounds or quotas or certain types of fish, so that does restrict fishermen in some way. Like we used to produce a lot of sugar beet, so that was closed down. So like I think there's actually more money sometimes in farmers to leave a field go barren for a year than there is to grow something because of whoever thinks something's a good idea. Um, and I suppose it was yeah. I suppose when I was growing up, I think I was growing up through a very wealthy time of the country. There was like, lots of people had money and people were out spending, and it was all fine. And kind of, I suppose, at the moment with inflation and everything, it's a bit of a different thing with inflation. Everything's a bit tighter, and kind of there's maybe not as much life out now. Young people are still out partying. I suppose that'd be in college or whatever. They're still going out and doing their drinking, but it's definitely not as flourished. And even, gosh, over the past decade, 10 or 15 years, like when I was in college, when I was 18, so what, like about 15 years ago, when I was in college, you could go up, you could go out on a night out and you could literally walk from one house into another, not know anyone, and join in. And you know what I mean? To be not and said,
Yeah,
whereas if you done that now, you'd probably get beat up or stabbed or something. It's
yeah.
a different world now. Yeah, it's definitely not as yeah, it's not as free flowing that way as it used to be. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so it's about that time that we would love for you to share your story of how you became Daniel in and of itself and what led you to doing yoga and so much more. So please, Daniel, come share your story with us today on
Okay.
Conversation for Humanity.
Yeah. Well, that's a funny question of how I became Daniel, because it's only in the past few years that I've really reclaimed my name. So when I was growing up, everyone used to call me De Belgie, because my father was De Belgie because he was from Belgium. So I got passed on the nickname. But then Belgie kind of came like a persona that I took on, because I used to smoke cannabis from quite a young age, maybe the age of 10 or 11. We used to smoke like young chaps who weren't even in secondary school. We used to smoke a lot of dope. Used to take a lot of drugs when we were younger, and wild stuff. And then went to college. So through the years, would have kept on smoking and doing stuff. Went to college, ended up working in one of these legal high shops that came up, trying to stay on the right side of the law and all that stuff. But that was even more dangerous, I'd say. And I think, Yeah, so in around when I left college at the age of 21, I had a higher cert in pharmaceutical science. I was after taking too many legal high drugs and I didn't have the capacity to concentrate or to focus in college anymore. So I just got a letter from the doctor, left, and I think I was in court for cannabis and stuff like this anyway. So I left off college and I had to go to a counselor as like part of the court order. I had to go to this place. So that lady suggested it would be good to keep your mind going. So I was doing some cooking courses and things like that. And I went into the local bookshop and health food store one day, and I seen a set of teach yourself tarot cards, and I seen a crystal set of rose quartz and adventurine. And when I read the back of them and seeing what they done about releasing grief and anger or more self love or all these things, when I was like stopped for a minute and really honest with me, like in here somewhere, I said, fuck, that's what I need in my life right now. Because my father died, say, the Christmas before I finished school, before college, because my mother wanted me to keep studying. I didn't get any time off. I would have probably rather look at taking on the business, but I was kind of, Mammy wants you to do something, so you do what Mammy said, and goodbye syndrome and all that stuff. So I kind of suppressed all my actual grief. And then at this later stage in my life, I said, fuck, that's what I need now. And I started, doing some yoga and doing some shamanic workshops because I was interested in shamanism and different meditations, things like that. Um, and then I ended up in a relationship with a woman who's now the mother of my kids, but it was a very unhealthy relationship. And like back in the day, I would have said that like it's toxic or she's toxic or we're toxic. But now that I'm more educated and grounded in myself, I can see that I was being a bad man. I wasn't living in my like divine masculine. I wasn't holding the feminine the way it deserves to be held. I wasn't laying boundaries and like laying boundaries and being assertive and all those things. And then by default, then the woman cannot respect you. So then you're annoyed because you're being disrespected, and that's what creates this whole negative
Yeah.
cycle. And she had her own stuff to deal with as well. So but our first son was conceived anyway, and when he was born, the love that I felt when holding my son in my arms for the first time just kind of woke me up and made me realize like I am more than this angry shell of a man that I've become. And that's when I really started like the big, you know what I mean, the big transformations coming. And then I think after my son, I lived together with the mother of my kids for maybe 6 to 9 months when my son was little. And before he was one, then we had like a terrible, oh God, a terrible breakdown. I think I had explained all my all my heart stuff. She just fell asleep, didn't even respond to me, and I think I got drunk and broke down. She woke up and was aggressive towards me, and then it came to a point where I was feeding her child, and she was in my face telling me to choke her like repeatedly and repeatedly and repeatedly to a certain point where something inside my mind broke. And I placed my child down because he didn't even spill his bottle. You know what I mean? So I gently put the child down and I had attacked her and I just blacked out. And for that began a few months of being really angry and really violent and really not like in control of me at all. And I said, this is not good enough for me or my family or my child. And then I pulled back away from the relationship. I started doing a lot of anger management and doing a lot of inner work and stuff like that. I got back into my yoga. I had kind of, when I was living with her, I was completely separated from my support network and all the things I was doing for myself. So I got stuck back into anger management and yoga and Pilates and things like that. Um, we wouldn't be around each other for a few months. Then we'd start getting on quite well. Then we'd become physically intimate. And then after we'd be physically intimate, it's like that same can of worms would open back up and we'd go all crazy with one another. Um, and then I'd pull back away. But every time this thing kept happening, sure, then another child kept getting conceived. So I have 3 kids now with the same woman, but we're not together now. We're fully separated. But over the years, then I've done say San Pedro, the medicines from South America, and then I would have done my shaman training and my yoga teacher training. And it was after the last time that me and one of my kids separated, and she got with one of my friends. It was like that kind of what felt like a betrayal. I don't know if it was a full betrayal, but what felt like a betrayal allowed me to access pain that I had suppressed from like the beginning of our relationship, and release tears of like the most violent, like fucking, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, stuff coming out of you on the bed. And then I started doing the men's empowerment work with a guy from Finland called Mishka. And since doing that, it finally kind of gave me the confidence and the groundedness to say, like, okay, I have all these tools. Now I'm going to actually do something with them. And since then, I've just been building myself up more and more and putting myself out there. And then I did the coaching course, and like here I am now, like officially launched the business. Said I have the capacity now to take this on. So I kind of have a schedule now where I have my kids every Thursday to Sunday. I have my kids once a month. I have a Saturday and Sunday off to try and to run a workshop and try to get some clients in that way. And then I might keep the kids like an extra day of one of the weekend, keep them to a Monday or something like that to kind of balance out the time. Where on holidays they'll be with me extra time as well. And so I kind of have like like Sunday night, because I teach yoga Sunday night. So I've got Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to make the business work. Thursday is kind of busy between getting dinner ready for when I pick up the kids to going and getting them. And then Friday morning, I teach the extra yoga class while they're in school, just to be may as well be trying to make money instead of spend it, you know. So yeah, that's kind of like the synopsis version. Really, I'm really passionate now about helping people become the most authentic and grounded and loving versions of themselves, and help them learn how to communicate and express their wants, their needs, their desires, their boundaries, whatever it is. Because at the end of the day, if I can help even one man or one woman save either a failing relationship or else prevent them from getting into a bad relationship because they can enter from a secure place rather than an anxious or an avoidant place, and prevent their children then from going through the same amount of either trauma as my oldest son would have done from witnessing our aggression, or just the level of separation of my younger two kids from being back and forth, not constantly with mommy and daddy. You know, if I can save one family or one child from experiencing what my family have had to go through or what I've gone through with my partner, sure, fuck, at least some good came out of a shit situation.
Well, when you really think about it, Daniel, that was truly powerful. What you did is you took, I kid you not, a negative for what most people would see it to be and said, you know what? I'm going to have life happen for me rather than to me. And I'm going to take this and make this instead of a negative, but turn it into a positive. And you can be able to say, you know what? This is the journey that has led me to become the person I am today. Because maybe without that trials and tribulations with your the mother of your children and going through all the stuff that you had to go through on your personal side of things, it it really wouldn't have been the life that you really wanted to have if you didn't have those events and moments in your life to really have that there for you. Because then again, the life that we want to live and lead is not the one that maybe sometimes that we choose. Maybe it's the one that's been thrust upon us, but then we have to choose to either accept it or to embrace it or throw it away or whatever that might be. But when we really see that something is there for us and is meant for us, and we take that in and do it from the power of discernment, do it from the power of understanding and the power of acknowledgement that it's there for us, then that changes not only our whole life in and of itself, but it changes our whole direction because of it. Does it not?
Mm. I do wonder about that sometimes, right? Because I do wonder, has all this stuff just made me become the person that I am? Or was I already this person and all the choices that I made that were not in alignment with me and my authenticity then dragged me away from myself for a while? And it took me this amount of time to remember because, like, if I'm fully honest with myself, there's moments in time where maybe I could have entered a situation with a different mind frame and may have had a similar result, but just say instances where I chose bitterness, but from a place of entitlement or something like that, and instead of like going in with curiosity or compassion, has led to some of the destruction and the chaos in my life, and that's on me. You know what I mean? So if I knew then that probably going in like that isn't the best thing to do, but I chose to be entitled or chose to shadow,
Mhm.
then it means I've always been this good person at the back of it all, who's good and happy and stuff. I just didn't maybe have all the tools and strength and desire even to be a better version, the best version of myself. Yeah. I was
And
maybe even afraid to be it.
exactly. And see, Daniel, when we just accept life for what it is versus what it's not, we can really, again, like you said before, really get down deep inside of ourselves to really see, number one, where do we want to go? What do we want to achieve? How are we going to get there? And maybe when we are willing to let go of not only what we fear to lose, Daniel, the things that maybe holds us back, then we choose to say, you know what, I'll never be held back ever again. I choose never to be in a place of, hey, life is happening to me ever again. Life is actually happening for me. And then next thing you know, when we show that to people and we show up as who we really are, then maybe, just maybe, people will recognize that and get very curious and say, hey, Daniel, I want to know more about this yoga that you're doing. How can I get involved? And then once they hear about who you are, not what you do, because I truly believe, Daniel, the better question to ask is, who are you? Because see, what you do is a natural byproduct of who you are, is it not?
Mm. Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. That's a good question. Is what you do a natural byproduct of who you are?
I truly believe it is, because
Yeah,
we can do stuff all day long, but does
yeah,
that really tell people and yourself who you are?
yeah. Hmm. I just think like, yeah, sometimes, yeah, and I suppose the probably resistance of answering that is like, yeah, because sometimes what you do is because we're not, you know what I mean? We may be beings of light and high vibration, but we all have the darkness and the shadow and the mischievousness in there as well. And when
Mhm.
you kind of get forced with a question like that to look at that and be like, oh yeah, I suppose it is because who I am is all these great things, but it's also some of those like darker things that don't always have to be bad. It's just how you let them come out in the world will kind of
Mhm.
dictate whether they're good or bad, really.
And you're absolutely right on that, because everything has different levels of perspectives in it.
Mm,
Everything has, I won't say a right way or a wrong way, because see, I don't believe in that dynamic anymore, because we've always been led to believe that everything has to be on the right side of things and not on the wrong side of things. We've done that since the dawn of time. And yes, I get it. That's sometimes the only way that we can articulate of what works best for us. And I truly believe when you really go down deep inside yourself, Daniel, and really say, this is what works for me. And if it's yoga, go yoga to your heart's content. If it's music, music yourself to death until you really can't do no music no more. And because again, when you find what you love and you really have that passion to do what you do, and it's like the old adage is so true. If you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And
mm,
when people see that and resonate with that and then say, hey, this is not actual work, this is who I am, and the byproduct of that comes again about knowing thyself to such an extent. When you show up as who you are, then people, as they start, well, wait a minute, if you're so good at yoga, can't we incorporate a little music with the yoga? Oh, absolutely. Let's do that. Let's bring a DJ in. Let's have a band. Let's have maybe a cocktail night, whatever. And see, the more that we create that opportunity for people to be there in that space and place, that not only of the one that they love, but the one that they want to grow and thrive in, then that creates the exponential effect of what if we was to do this? What if we was to do that? And then that's how our community grows and thrives, does it not?
Hmm. Yeah, well, I suppose, yeah, like that, it's trial and error. You find the people that you resonate with, and gel from there. Because, yeah, I suppose, I don't know. For me personally, sometimes when it comes to people doing similar things, or sound healings, or caca dances, just sometimes you just click. You click with people, and they're the ones you get chatting with in a conversation, and build a community. So I think sometimes it can be naturally fluid like that. But then I think other times, um, sometimes you can need to maybe push yourself a bit, and go and either ask for help, or else kind of like put your ideas out there with somebody that you're not familiar with, or that maybe there is a bit of friction there, but you don't know why, and you want to go and explore that. And is it actually maybe something like, maybe subconsciously jealous, or are you afraid because they remind you of someone, or you know what I mean? Like, what is the opposing force sometimes preventing you from going to people? Because it's not always a negative thing. I've been at a few men's things where, say, like, you'd feel a funny energy with somebody, and then you had to put on the hand of the person you were most afraid of, for example, and somebody had put their hand on me because I reminded them of their dad, or whatever, whatever expression was on my face. And it's like, fuck, you never know what's going on with people. So
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes you'll flow into that, like, creativity mode with people, but sometimes it's good to go, like, who's the person you're least drawn to talk to, and then go talk to them, and see what they're about and what's their
Yeah.
crack. You know what I mean? That could be the most beneficial person to talk to. So,
But see, you just said something there that's really pivotal, and I truly believe really inspirational. What if we don't have an opposing force against us? Maybe we say it's not an opposing thing that keeps us from where we want to go. maybe it's maybe it's that thing, Daniel. That's the thing that kind of gives us maybe that teachable moment to really learn not only about ourselves, but learn how can we get to that next level in life? How can we actually grow and thrive in that next level? Because again, when you oppose something, it's on the counter opposite of what you stand for and everything like that. And yeah, sometimes the immovable object and the immovable force really comes to clash to one another. But maybe sometimes that clash needs to happen to a certain degree,
yeah,
that where out of that bang,
yeah, from the
clarity
group.
comes into play, opportunity comes into play, awareness, fulfillment maybe even shows up. And then by just allowing that to occur, it can go so far and wide, but then you choose to deem it so.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, no, it is definitely good for an immovable object to meet an unstoppable force sometimes, because there
Mhm.
always is a lot of learning and growing from those kind of instances. And I don't know if opposing force is always the word I'd use, but for me personally, I kind of like, I feel things out a lot and try to use my discernment. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like, if I'm going for a sea swim, there might be resistance to me going for a sea swim, but I know that, just like, I don't want to get cold, so I push through that resistance and go anyway.
Yeah.
But then I try to use that then, like a gauge, like, just say if there's somebody I want to talk to and I feel that kind of resistance, I'll push myself to go through it and go ahead and do it. But if I like go to talk to somebody, interact, and I get like more of a, when you're looking out off the edge of a cliff and you're going to slip and you get that cautious away, just a cautious awareness of danger, then I might kind of stop and go, okay, right, what's going on there? And, step into the observer mode and not plow on. So I think it's, yeah, trying to really distinguish between like, do I feel afraid of something? Because if I feel afraid, it's probably false expectations appearing real and you should push through it. But if there's a cautious awareness of danger, then maybe you should stop and sit back and actually just take in what's going on here and what's happening for a minute. That's something I'm always aiming
But think
to.
about it, though, Daniel. You just hit the nail on the head.
Mm,
Fear is a little good, and here's why. Because that fear keeps us honest. That fear keeps us on its toes. That fear keeps us really aware of what is around us. It's just like, think about it. And I've seen it done many, many times. People would literally, and I kid you not, sometimes do the strangest things to go outside of their comfort zone. And the thing that really pops in my head is I've seen people take that, what they call the polar bear plunge. They will go literally in below freezing weather, go out into a lake or a river or whatever that might be, and they literally plunge themselves in that very cold that they swore they would never do, but yet
mm,
do it anyways because they know it will get them to that next, oh, okay, it's not a bad thing, it's a great thing, and everything like that. Because when it is false expectations to appear real, that's what
mm,
the acumen stands for, and I truly love that. Because if we have that expectation to, and again, when you think about expectation, Daniel, this one comes up for me when you said that about fear.
mm,
Maybe let me ask you this: do you believe perception is reality, or is reality reality?
mm. Well, yeah. Well, I think it's hard to define what reality is when it comes between two people's perspectives. Because, like,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? How does one define reality when there's two different perspectives? So, like, I can use like an example. I was at a festival a while ago, and
Uh-huh.
there was a lady that was friends with a friend of mine.
Hmm.
And I rang him one day. He happened to be with her. I had actually added her on Facebook because I was like, oh, look, a pretty girl. I wonder what's her crack. And I could like add pretty girls on Facebook to think, oh, maybe I'll chat them up someday. And I just forget because I'm living my life and I'm too busy. You know what I mean? And when I seen I had actually added her before, I said, oh, you're that pretty girl I added on Facebook. I forgot to message. And she was like, oh, so we had a few text messages. And then I went to this festival and she was there. So when she seen me, she said, oh, hey, Daniel. She came over, jumped straight on my lap, gave me a big hug, said, oh, that was lovely and warm and inviting and friendly. Thought maybe there's a potential to connect with this lady. Then I had invited her to come to a cacao dance for my birthday at the end of the festival. I was leaving just a couple of hours early or a few hours early, and she said she wasn't sure she'd think about it. So I think, okay, that's cool. Here's this lady that I've never met. She needs some time to think about it, to feel into it. That's totally understandable because I'm just some random guy. And then I think I had asked her a second time, and she said, yeah, I'll let you know there in a bit. I'm just having a look what my other friend is doing, and it wasn't a no, it wasn't an all out no. So I said, okay, grand. I said I'll get the car cleaned out in case I need the extra chair in the front. And then before I left, I said, right, I'll ask her now what the crack is. And then she said no, she was feeling to stay, and I said, okay, cool. Hope you have a good time. Enjoy your evening, grand. So, like in my universe, my perspective was she was unsure. She needed time to think. She decided no, and then when it was a no, she said no, and that was grand. But in her universe, she had then apparently told my friend that I didn't take no for an answer, and I was being very forward, but no wasn't the answer until the last time. You know what I mean? So her perspective is I was a pushy guy. My perspective is I'm waiting on this lady to figure out, and like, what do you define the reality of there? You know, what was, you know what I mean? What's the reality there? Is she being hypercritical because she didn't lay boundaries and assert what her truth was in the first instance for fear of hurting my feelings,
Mhm.
or was I being overly forward instead of taking like taking the hints or possible energy? But you know, we're both living our truths at the same time. So how do you define that reality? You know what I mean? So yeah, I find it. I think it's easy to say like in reality, a chair is a chair, or you know what I mean, or a steak is a steak, or a coat's a coat. But then when you're talking about a shared experience between two people, like who is the judge or definer of reality outside of ourselves?
And I'm glad you brought that up in that context because a great friend of mine, his name is Brian Sumner, he uses this in this kind of example. He says, if we all go to the same Harry Potter movie, are we going to see the same Harry Potter movie, or are we going to see different versions of that very same movie? And I believe what happens for us, and you just kind of hit on it, what we do is we take the nuggets and the things that really resonates with us in that very shared experience moment that we have with people. And again, we have a different take on it versus what probably actually happened. And kid you not, this is prevalent when people are in, let's say, in an accident scene, or they've seen someone rob somebody or something like that. And when people are taking information down, people only can grasp only what their mind can do it from that very now moment. So one person would say, I saw this guy with a blue jacket on, but then another guy, even though he's still wearing a blue jacket, say, no, it was an orange jacket and everything like that, because the mind will sometimes play tricks on ourselves to do that. And and that is why I truly believe that we can really, through the power of discernment, really see what's actually before us. Yeah, mind you, another person's going to see it maybe a little bit differently. But if you get very curious about that moment in time with people and have that deep and meaningful conversation with people, for them to be able to see what you see or even believe for what it is versus what it's not. And then in turn, they allow you to be able to maybe even see and believe what they see and believe, even in that now moment as well. And you just leave that there for a second. Then maybe you guys can come to an opportunity of not only of allowing that to occur, but you can actually work within that space to actually see what can be done from that. How can you learn from it? How can you grow from it? Because again, everyone's going to have a unique take on the world, because their world is probably maybe the only world that they really are kin to and everything like that. Sometimes people don't live in someone else's world, even though we say this a lot. It's like, I would love to have been in your shoes when that great opportunity happened. I would love to have had that and everything like that. But we can't really understand that until we actually have not only been through it to a certain extent, but also have really seen it through the eyes of the people who went through it. It's just like the old adage is so true: beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And when we literally are seeing what's really in our own beholder of the eye, so to speak, and we see what is actually there before us, I truly believe, like I said, we can still appreciate and embrace what other people see, and even believe, even though it might be 180 degrees completely opposite of ours. But then when we allow that to be there, maybe through intentionality, and maybe through flow, and maybe through alignment and agreement, we create that space that wherever people are in that place in that now moment, Daniel, that they can join you in that journey, and they may have to start in alignment. They may be in alignment with a lot of different things with you, or they may have to start in agreement, and they might be in agreement with a lot of things with you, or vice versa. You might be in agreement with a lot of things with them, or you might be in an alignment with a lot of things. But then if you create that space together, that you feel your way through that to such an extent that, hey, maybe we start together in alignment together and then work into agreement, or vice versa. And then when you allow that to occur, then you're not beholden to have the kind of need of or an order to of kind of dynamic to really say, hey, this is how I can connect with people. This is how can I lead a class today. This is how I can be able to go to an actual event and get more engaged with the community. Do you see that as well?
Um, yeah, well, a couple of things that came into my mind there as you were talking. I was trying to hold on to the little filaments of thoughts and still keep up with what you were saying. And I suppose to begin at the end last, I think to start in agreement is probably like first and foremost, and then you'll work your way to alignment because
Mm-hmm.
you, as you get more comfortable with one another, you'll be able to be more authentic, and that's where real alignment happens, is when you're able to be authentic with one another and be accepting of where everyone is, even if it's not in alignment, and then you can be aligned even while technically misaligned.
Right.
um, and um, and even to go back then to the to go back to like to be able to define reality or have a shared reality, I think it comes back to authenticity. And
Mm-hmm.
before authenticity, I then think like two people have to be able to like honestly express their two perspectives onto the table. So like if you were to use my example, for instance, the two of us have our different perspectives on how it went, whereas maybe the reality was that lady probably didn't want to make me feel bad by saying no and had trouble like saying no. And I was probably really hopeful that I liked her that she'd say yes. And that's where the reality is. But then we have our two different perspectives while that reality is playing out, you know? So I think the more people can be authentic and honest and vulnerable, then the closer it will make their perception to be in line with the actual reality at hand.
Oh, absolutely. And see, I
Yeah.
love that because, like I said, everyone is going to have a unique take on not only a shared reality, but also an experience that you have, or even in the things that we hold most dear to our lives. It's like some people love steak, and then some people will say, this is the steak I love the most. No, this is the steak I love the most, and everything. And then everyone starts comparing things and that kind of thing. And but see, for me, when we do that comparison kind of dynamic, and I want to get your take on comparisons in and of itself, can we take comparison and make it a good thing versus a bad thing? Because I truly believe what's happened for a lot of us, Daniel, is we take comparing others of what they hold dear in their life, or what they have done in their life, or what they see in maybe in that very experience that we share together. Can we take that comparison and, like I said, not make it a negative so much anymore, but really maybe make it a positive and really say, hey, let's compare notes. Let's see what we can figure out from these two perspectives. How can we make it work?
Hmm. Oh yeah, well I think yeah, it's all with the place that it's coming from. Like when say like if I was to go to somebody else's class and I compared it to like their teaching style to mine, like I suppose it depends on if you share like your opinions or not, and how the person receives it will define if it's a good thing or a negative thing. Because if I like hear something I like, I'll go, "Oh, I like that. I'm going to use that. I'm going to," you know what I mean? Like use that descriptive word to help people move a certain way or breathe a certain way or relax deeper into a pose or their breathing or whatever it is, you know. And if there's something that I find that doesn't work, and I think, oh well, I'm not going to say that because I didn't like that. Um, or maybe felt something was unclear. Yeah, it depends on how you share that, but either way, it can be used for with good intent. You know what I mean, or to excel you better. And it also means that just because you didn't like it doesn't mean that other people don't like it either, because we're all so individualistic. So I think that's a very case by case thing of how comparisons can either be a good thing or a bad thing, or used in the right way. I think if it's the same thing, like if you're comparing yourself to somebody, it just depends on whether you're comparing to say like, oh look, he done that and I wasn't able to do that yet. I'm going to excel so I can try and get there. You're using it as a positive fuel, you know. But if you compare yourself, say, fuck, he was able to do that and I couldn't. Ah, fuck me and fuck this and fuck that. Then then it's been turned into a negative. So I really think that's just how you choose to use a comparison or why. And then even the question bears, why are we comparing in the first place? I really,
Yes.
you know
Why
what I
do we
mean?
do it?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, why do we compare in the first place? And then suppose like if it comes to like kind of as my friend says, we drink a lot of ceremonial cacao before we go swimming, and you'll never get the same cup twice. You know what I mean? I'm not like, I don't weigh anything, I don't measure anything. I take out a chunk of cacao out the bag, I chop it up, I fire it in there, I tap in. I have this vitality support powder that's got like cinnamon, ginger, cayenne pepper, and different types of mushrooms and ashwagandha maca powder. Like the whole works, really good jar of stuff. I fire in a shot of that, I fire in a bit of honey, maybe a bit of something else that's in the press that it should be good for you. It might be a bit spicy, might be a bit not, and we'll just get into a cycle. There's no two cups ever the same as the last cup. So like there's no time to compare or have comparisons, it's just you live for what it is.
Well,
Yeah.
I kid you not, like it was destined to happen. Keith, our great partner here at Bringing Humanity Together, is here with us today. Hello, Keith. How are you doing today, sir?
Are you Keith?
I'm doing well. I may sound a little bit like a robot. I'm not sure, but I'm just here to listen. Thank you so much, Daniel, for being here with us today.
Yeah, happy to be here, Keith. Happy to be here.
So, Keith, have you watched Daniel's conversation with me so far? What have you taken from it?
Again, I can't hear this. It's sounding a little bit like a robot, so I'll be here in the listening mode. Just want to show my support to you both.
All right. Thank you so much, Keith. But Daniel, like I said, it really goes back to I have to bring it to a perspective kind of dynamic because perspective is really big. Um, and also when you think about perspective, I got to bring this into the mix too as well. Let me ask you this, Daniel. What's your thoughts when it comes to conditioning? Um, have we been to a certain extent, whether to be in business, whether to be in life, whatever that might be for us, have we been conditioned to think one way and be a certain way versus what we can truly become? I mean, what's your take on that?
God, yeah. Well, I suppose like the potential to be conditioned is always there, and definitely with like television and movies and stuff like that. I think conditioning is definitely, maybe condition is not the right word in that instance. Literally programming. You know what I mean? Like you've been programmed to either act out certain things or like whether it comes to like watching the Disney movies, and there's always a dead parent at the beginning of a Disney movie. There's always a catastrophe, and then you're in bottling some sort of guilt or shame or something for the death of your parent, or you know what I mean. I think a lot of that like programming can come in. I think conditioning then is probably down to a case by case and environmental basis. You know what I mean? Kind of like depending on what your parents or your peers or what your life was like, that's more likely to condition you, I think, to a degree. And then it always comes down to the choice if you choose to listen. If you choose not to listen, then it doesn't matter what conditioning people try on putting you because you're going to do your own thing anyway. Um, yeah, I think I'm more fond of language programming and patterns and stuff. When I think of conditioned, I think of like I choose to condition my body because I go for sea swims and I do intense workouts sometimes and I do whatever. So I kind of condition myself. And I suppose you can condition people to a degree because you're trying to like when I'm teaching a yoga class, I'm conditioning because I'm getting I'm like building people up to a certain point, so I'm conditioning their bodies. But when I think about it in terms of behavior, I think more of like patterns and programming, and we can learn patterns and programming from the outside, and we can develop patterns and programming to protect ourselves at certain points in time, and then they might in service now. Um, yeah, just for some reason, the word conditioning just doesn't feel right for me. But I do believe that we can be programmed by external influences to behave in certain ways. I do believe we can pick up negative patterns from our surroundings or our parents. And then I'm also, yeah, fully certain that we can also go the opposite way. We can use them as a motivating factor to do the complete opposite. But then sometimes the opposite can also be detrimental. So I think it's about trying to find that balance. Um, Maybe an example is we can be maybe through life we can learn the pattern of the program and to either be anxious if we're going to receive some love because maybe we haven't had enough and the thought of it leaving once it comes in is kind of scary to lose it, or we could become avoidant because we don't want to get hurt. You know what I mean? We want to protect ourselves from going into that vulnerable place. And only recently I was debating what's the I don't want to be anxious and needy and attached because that's too fucking intense, for both people. And I don't want to be like avoidant and distant and cold and withdrawn. So like what's the balance? The balance then is to be like centered and heart centered and authentic and honest, and like only the best thing can happen from there. Um so yeah, I think we can be programmed and learn patterns or conditioned, if that's the word you like to use. But I think we can, once we start becoming aware of the programming or the patterns or the conditions, we can definitely do some inner work and shift them and replace them with healthier or more beneficial ones if it's something that's um having an unwanted impact in our life or preventing us from getting to where we want to go or forcing us into somewhere we don't want to be, whatever the case is. Yeah.
What's your take on that, Keith?
No, I think great. I'm loving it. I mean, I can't really say. I'm just really just listening to the words, and it's like your careful choice of words too, as well, is important too. Um, and I'm just thinking back to, like, as we're growing up in this world, and we're looking at our parents first as role models, and then once they allow other people into our life, which sometimes it takes a little bit longer depending on how many people they want to influence us. Then it's their friends, then it's their extended family that you're reaching out to, and then they introduce something called the TV, and now it's the internet, which is all shaping us and molding us and providing that influence in terms of how we should identify, how we should act in terms of with our family, or what we should aspire to be as we're growing up. But I think that all of these influences, yes, they do really make an impact on our lives, and it's trying to actually realize the people that as we've already grown up, now we know exactly that that has occurred, and it's trying to see who is in our circle, who are we actually letting in our head, and who is capable of taking some of that positive energy and momentum that we have as we're trying to push forward on our dreams and our goals, and how they could really set us back, and how they could really change our whole entire path based upon how they're trying to show us how they would like for us to be, to conform to how they are. So it's kind of losing ourself, and just losing the diversity that we may have in opinions or ideas, and becoming somebody else or another ideology based upon uniformity in either the world, or it could just be in a smaller community. It could be your work, or it could be just your smaller professional circle. It's just losing who you are or what you're planning on doing just based upon all the external inputs that you're getting. So I
Mhm.
think that's really what brings up to me, like, I'm thinking about, like, overall, it's just like how it's like the word conditioning. Yeah, that's a really bad word. It's a bit, nowadays conditioning could really get into meaning a lot worse things that are out there that have happened in multiple people's life. Like, another word would be grooming conditioning, or just, getting people to really prepare them for the future that you want them to have, not for the future that they really need to have.
Hmm.
Just my perspective, but I am sitting back and listening now that it's no longer robot-y.
Hmm.
It was pretty funny for a minute
Yeah.
with my connection. But thank you so much, Daniel.
Yeah, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. Yeah, and I like that. Yeah, something I'm really conscious of as well is my use of language. So well spotted, Keith. Like I'm always looking up definitions of words because I want to really like say what I mean and mean what I say. You know, I don't want to be using the wrong word at the wrong time. If you I can post a link into the Bringing Humanity Together page actually because I have inspirational raps on YouTube and I probably would go back and change some words now. But even a few years ago when I was writing them, I was trying to be very precise with my language. And and the other point I was wanting to tip off there when I heard you talk about like losing yourself to all the external stimulus is like boundaries and how it just the importance of boundaries, you know, and laying them. And I read an interesting book there just a couple of months ago called, or just the last over the, like January, called The One Life Solution by Henry Cloud. And it was all about bringing boundaries into work and how you can bring that into your outside life. And people think they have like trouble managing time or they have trouble getting their work done or trouble focusing or whatever the case is, when usually the trouble is boundaries. They have trouble defining where they end and somebody else begins and where something's their responsibility and where it's not, you know. So whether it's like looking at your emails when you're halfway through
Yes.
writing the thing and you're using the flow, or else Johnny at the water cooler won't shut up and you don't have the fucking capacity to say, look, Johnny, I have to get back to work there now. You can ring me later for a chat if you want to chat, but now it's time to work, you know, or whatever the, you know, whatever that is, or, you
I
know,
think
or
so,
somebody's not. Oh, go on. Sorry.
Daniel, what I was going to say, sorry, what I think is really important too as well with what we're getting into the boundaries part is that, when you're entering a new company, and let's just say it's not even a company, it's any relationship that you're in, the
Mm,
second that you realize something doesn't really feel right and you continue with it,
mm,
you're telling somebody else that it's okay. You're
yeah.
basically saying yes. So if someone is emailing you after hours, calling you after hours from your job, you get off at this particular time, this is not an emergency, situation, that by you responding back, that you actually need to start taking accountability into the demise of what's happening with your work life balance too as well, because you played a role. So if the second that you start allowing someone to overtake your boundaries that you've already put in place, then that really creates that whole entire dilemma. It's like, what do I do? What do I do? And that angst that you wind up having. So I think it's really important to establish yourself, that initially in a relationship in terms of what you would like and what, so that people can understand exactly how to treat you. So I think
Mm,
that's a boundaries is even if you're getting to your lunch hour, if you want to have a lunch at a particular time every single day, block it into your calendar to ensure that you do not have any other meetings happening at that time. And of course, if something else happens that you have to do a lunch and learn, go for it. But that way, at least you're setting that time for yourself to focus on you.
yeah. Yeah. 100%. 100%. Yeah. I especially like the part about taking accountability. And I like, I really do my best to like take ownership of like where I went wrong in a situation. If something's gone pear shaped and said, well, like, well, this is what happened, but I know that I could have like, you know what I mean? This is where I could step up in future, or this is where I let myself down. And any of my friends will tell you I love asking questions and saying, oh, well, what about that? You know what I mean? Couldn't you? You know what I mean? Like, what did you do? So I love, yeah, the both sides of that coin. So I do. Yeah, yeah, I do. I do love that. Yeah, and I'm happy with myself that I'm getting better at laying boundaries and communicating them and honoring them because as I don't know if you were here at the very start of the call, but as I said to Chris years ago, I would have said me and the mother of my kids' relationship is toxic, and now I would say that I didn't lay boundaries and communicate them and assert them, and that created, you know what I mean? And that happened both ways, which allowed resentment and all these things to grow, which is kind of neither of our faults because, well, it's both our faults and it's none of our faults at the same time. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And by taking that accountability and at least owning it, that's going to
yeah.
help you build those really great foundational relationships, because then they understand that if they're bringing something to the table where you know you did wrong, that you know that it was something that didn't make sense or didn't work, and this is an initiative that you brought up, if you're able to actually own it, you're going to create those safe spaces where there's going to be the proper amount of psychological safety within the workplace or with even in your home too as well. Just making sure that people feel comfortable actually speaking up and letting them know that you are not the end all be all, that you will have it, you're not perfect, that you will make mistakes, but then you're going to learn and you're going to grow from each of those learning moments instead of acting as if they never occurred. So it's
Mhm.
really important, just again, that transparency, that accountability, and it's just having the proper emotional intelligence to know when to actually to speak or when to listen.
Yeah. That kind of sounds
So
like a conversation I have with my kids a lot. Yeah. Whenever I'm giving out to myself for shouting too loud sometime, like second off me temper and yeah, I'm sitting down. So once a month or at least, once every couple of months I'll sit down and say, daddy, daddy doesn't always get things right and he makes mistakes too and I always love you and always and something I do because the line of work I'm in and like the shadow healing and doing a lot of inner child work and stuff, I identify feelings I felt when I was little, whether that was unsafe or not worthy of love or deserve to be punished, whatever these things were, and I'll sit down and say, geez, you know what? Sometimes when Daddy was young, he felt like this because whatever happened. And if I've ever done that to make you feel like that, I want to let you know that that's wrong and that's not the case and stuff. And we have these like real moments of like connection where they go like, I get you, Dad. You know what I mean? We'll have a big hug and a big whatever, and then life will continue. 2 months later, you'll be after like getting back to a place. You're like, clean your fucking room, will you? And then you're like, okay, put the shout, and then you're having the conversation again. Yeah.
I love it, and I can say that I there's been times when like I'm always real, and that's the hard part. I mean, I'd rather not have a conversation with my son if I'm going through something than have the conversation, because we've always had a 100% transparent relationship. So I did, that's the way that I thought would be best to raise him, so that he would be able to see it, be able to feel it, and understand exactly the importance of whatever we're doing. So I was raised in a different manner where things were a little bit different, a little bit more stricter, in terms of that. Like there wasn't as much stuff that I knew, but like he knows a lot more. Like he's been involved in my work and volunteering since he was like 8 or 9 years old, out there, handing out things to people and just really being a part of the solution. So I think that, we all learn a lot as we're growing up. And again, I had an amazing childhood, but I didn't really experience a lot of the things, my son at this point, even years ago, I mean, he got to star in, not star, but he got to be involved in movies and commercials and all this other stuff with me. And I think that if we find those ways to really interact with our child, when we look at our purpose, we look at what we're passionate about, if we're able to involve our child, to bring them into the mix, they're going to understand really a lot more about us. And that way, when things do get tough, that they're going to be able to be by your side and not just think about all the stressful situations that they're in with you, either just talking about their grades or any of these other topics that may not be the best for every single parent. Just trying to diversify the conversations too as well really helps. But yeah, thank you so much again, Daniel, for your thoughtful shares. And we're just so grateful to have you, as a member of Bringing Humanity Together. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Keith. Thank you.
So, Daniel, what a conversation yet again. I have learned so much about you in and of itself, and that's what these shows is all about, to get to know people for who they are and everything. And Daniel, I want to go to you now and want to give your final thoughts to people who really want to go into their next level in life and how can they get there and that kind of thing. So, what would you say to somebody today that really wants to say, hey, it's time for me to go to that next level in life? what advice could Daniel give me today?
Hmm. I suppose some of the most important things are be honest with yourself. You know what I mean? If you're not going to be honest with anyone else, be honest with yourself. Because if you don't really look inside and take ownership of what you're doing wrong, you won't change it. Um, Speak lovingly to yourself inside. You know that inner critic. We all have that inner critic, that voice that can give out and do whatever, and to just accept yourself as you are now, while still encourage yourself to do better in future is so vital. To just like that last half a kilometer you're jogging and you just need to coach yourself to get through it, or you just need to take that step off the pier to get into the cold water or whatever it is. Encourage yourself, pick yourself up, and remember that if you knew now what you knew then, you probably would have done something different, but you didn't, so you couldn't. So all you can do is take whatever the lesson is from whatever experience is impacting you emotionally, and aim to do better moving forward. So after that, if you're still having trouble after that, reach out to me for a free chemistry call and we'll see if we can sort it out. And if not, we'll try and find somebody who can. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Daniel, I just can't wait to get to know more about you and collaborate with you moving forward. And I'm so humbled, and me and Keith are so humbled and honored that you're a part of our great and growing community and movement that is bringing humanity together. So,
Yeah.
Daniel, I just can't wait to hear more from you.
I've
And
got
thank you so
one.
much.
I've got one more quick thing actually that pops in before I go. It would be for men and women to honor their cycles. Men are like the sun, they rise and fall every day and get over things and process things a lot differently to women. And women are like the moon, it might take them the whole month to take something in, digest it, come back and be able to present themselves again. So honor your own cycles and not be harsh on yourself for being different to your man and the woman, and also honor each other's cycles. So have compassion that the
Yeah.
man in your life might process things differently and quicker than you can comprehend, and she may take longer than you can comprehend, and that's okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. And we would love to invite you all to come share your story on Conversations for Humanity. The link is in the comment section, not only on our YouTube channel, but also here on LinkedIn. We would love to hear from you guys today. What did you think about Daniel's story and the conversation that we had? And if you even want to get to know more about bringing humanity together and what we're doing here, Keith, how can they get a hold of us?
You could message one of us on LinkedIn. You can message Chris Berryman, or you can message Keith Kuperman, or message any of our team. But you can also check out bringinghumanity.com, which has plenty of information about the movement itself, as well as email youbelong, which is YOUBELONG, at bringinghumanity.com.
Awesome, awesome. And Daniel, I put your information in today's call so people can reach out and connect with you. But again, we're just so humbled and honored you came to share your story with us today. And like I said, we can't wait to collaborate with you moving forward. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us today on
True.
Conversation for Humanity.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me, Chris. Thanks for having me, Keith. Yeah. Honored to share.
Absolutely. So you guys have a great day. Make your day on Wonderful Wednesday. And we'll see you next time on Conversation for Humanity. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye,
Likewise.
everyone.